Good afternoon, everybody. It is June the 11th. It's Friday. It's 12 noon. It is time for another episode of Lessons in Leadership. My name is Mary Gregory, and I'm really, really pleased to welcome today the most amazing and incredible woman leader, Bolutiwi Aiyesimoju. I've got it wrong again. I got it wrong last week. I will get it wrong. I hope I will try and get it right. Aiyesimoju.
That was very well said, Mary.
Thank you.
You're very brave to even try. So,
well, you're very understanding, because I think it's really important to get people's names right, and it's not okay for me not to get them right. But anyway, there we go. It's a very warm welcome to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Mary. I'm very, very honored and excited to be here.
Okay, great. Well, I'm really pleased that you're here because you have a great story to tell. Now, let me just give everyone who's going to be watching a sort of bit of background. So you have been a senior leader in various different big corporate organizations, international organizations. The one we're going to mention is L'Oreal. Particularly, we're mentioning L'Oreal because you set up a transformational program linked to diversity and inclusion that has, at the latest count, included 18,000 participants, which is phenomenal. I don't think I've ever heard of a program that's actually reached out to quite so many people. That is a phenomenal audience that you've touched there. So incredible.
Well, absolutely, Mary. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Yes, I was very fortunate to have had the opportunity to actually be at L'Oreal at a point where we were definitely looking into diversity and equity in Europe. And I actually there was a position that was new, and this was given to me, a great honor. And it was so beautiful because when I went into understanding what was going on, and let's just focus on women and as leaders, that was a big thing. We really wanted to make sure women were going up in terms of the management committees and really right to the top of L'Oreal, because there's so many women at L'Oreal, as you could imagine. And what we found really was that it wasn't like people were necessarily going to work and being intentionally discriminatory, but there wasn't that level of awareness around the prejudices and stereotypes that we all have.
Yes.
We all have them. It's human, right?
Yes.
So I basically suggested to the vice president in charge of the division that I was working in, we need help from outside. We need to be humble and say, look, we don't know anything about this, but we are going to get experts to help us, train us. And mindset, I mean, this is a big thing for you, and I knew mindset was something we needed to shift. And once we put that into place, we started really seeing that people said, oh, hang on a minute, I'm thinking this way, but is it really true? First of all. And then, even going further, it's not only about having diverse teams, it's how can you really do things to include them, right?
Yes.
How would you treat people differently, but equitably? And I just love that job. You can see I'm just all over it. So that was beautiful. And yes, 18,000 people have now attended.
That is incredible. What a legacy to leave behind in that organization. And I think what I really am impressed by is that you did focus on the mindset and on people looking at their beliefs and exploring themselves and their prejudices. And so often, you know, we human beings or organizations particularly try and fix it by, let's put in some new processes, let's put in some new policies, that'll fix it. But actually at the core of it is our mindset and our beliefs. And the fact that it was an experiential program and addressed those things, I think was absolutely phenomenal. And so did you just focus on women at that time, or did you look into, different ethnicities and all sorts of different diversity?
That's a great question, actually, Mary. No, we didn't only focus on women. We had 6 aspects of diversity we're looking at. So we're looking at, for example, age. That's a big thing, especially in a beauty company. Let's be honest. We're looking at nationality to make sure that it wasn't only the French who really got to the top. L'Oreal at the headquarters was, at least maybe still is, a very French company. We're also looking at what we call social origin. So basically, L'Oreal at very high levels would usually recruit from the best schools. So we're looking out into other schools because there's talent everywhere, as you know, Mary.
There is.
Exactly. But I'll be honest with you, we were looking at 6 things, but what I really told my managers at the time, as I said, look, I have looked at this, and when you look at the level or the way in which women and men are going up the levels, if you take a woman who is not from any ethnic minority, who has gone to the best schools, who speaks perfectly well, who there's nothing that you can say, off. She still is not moving up as quickly as her male counterpart. So I said, until we've solved the issue for women, we're never going to solve it for anybody else.
That's a very interesting, that's a fantastic way of looking at it, actually. I hadn't quite thought of it that way, because I know I do a lot of work with women leaders, and I keep thinking I should be doing more around diversity. But you're right, it's men, women of all ethnicities, but we need to get the genders balanced. Wherever you are on the spectrum in terms of gender as well, we just need to have more balance and more inclusivity there. Now, I've got another question that's come up for me, because I've read about this in the press, and it is a question that people debate with regards to sending people on training programs, as it were. The criticism around running programs, particularly around unconscious bias and diversity and inclusion, is that it doesn't make that enough of a difference. It doesn't make that much difference. So, why are we sending them on these courses? Or I've even heard people say, oh, they go on the course, particularly unconscious bias, they go on the course and they realize, I've got these unconscious bias, that's just how I am, and then they come off it not really taking responsibility for it. So can you share a bit about your thoughts? I have my own opinions on that, I must admit. Can you share a bit about your thoughts on that and people's responses to whether these courses work or not?
Love it. I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I will share my thoughts. So first of all, you don't just create a program without having really understood what's happening in that particular organization. So it wasn't just a program that we took off the shelf and say, hey, that's that. You do what you do. Training needs analysis. Second of all, a program doesn't exist in a bubble. So it must be something that's supporting management objectives.
Yes.
So we had a VP who was very clear about exactly what he wanted, right?
Yes.
And he was definitely measuring his leadership team on that.
Yes.
What gets measured gets done. So we were measuring already, but I just thought it wasn't fair to measure if you were not giving people the opportunity to shift their minds.
Yes. Yes.
So it's the training, right?
Yes.
Plus the measurement, plus human resource processes that you put into place to support managers and leaders. So it's all about leadership, Mary. If the leader is not clear about this is important, it's not just just do it. It's nice to have. No, it all goes together. Like puzzle.
Yes.
Like a lever.
Yes.
So
I'm really hearing it's not about the program in isolation. It's about the program being very linked to what the organization needs and what the organization's objectives are. But it's also having other things in place in the organization. For example, leaders being measured on how much they're promoting diversity and inclusivity in their teams and things. Those are sorts of measures that can be put in place that enable the program to be effective. So in some ways, I'm very supported by what you say. I'm very comforted by what you say, because when people say, oh, these programs don't work, it can never be something in isolation, because it's a systemic problem. It's a systemic challenge for all of us. And the program is just one thing you're putting in place in the system, but you need to put other things in place in the system to get them to be most effective. Is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. 100%. Yes.
Fantastic. So just incredible. And what an amazing experience to have done that, and what a legacy you've left at L'Oreal. The fact that program is continuing and 18,000 people have been on it just blows me away. However, you're no longer with L'Oreal. You left. I'm not sure how long ago. You can share that with us in a minute, but you have left. And part of your reason for leaving was you did what many high achieving executives do, is you burnt out. So would you mind telling us a bit more about your story around what happened that caused you to burn out, and what's happened as a result of that?
I don't mind at all. I'll be delighted, actually. So, Mary, look, I worked for 14 years at L'Oreal with the intensity of a Formula One driver and the dedication of a doctor on call. It was my life. I was so into it. And you work a lot about identity, so you know. And I'm looking back now, I realize it had taken over my identity, my sense of being. I had forgotten who I was without it, which is not a healthy place to be, if I'm honest. In any case, it was so intense that after 14 years, I definitely crashed and burned.
Yeah.
And so I just had to decide, was this going to be something where I could got myself up again and then went off for another 14 years and then did the same thing? Or was I going to step out of it? And if I'm honest, it had become painfully small, right? It's odd because it's a humongous company, right? But it's like a pair of shoes that you love as a child, and no matter how pretty they are, you outgrow them. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with a pair of shoes. You've simply outgrown it. And I felt like I was going through the motions, but my soul had departed.
Oh.
Fortunately, my pain wasn't in vain, and I really decided I was going to inspire other women leaders. So many brilliant, marvelous, intelligent, extraordinary women leaders are burning out.
Yeah.
I wasn't alone. There's so many out there. And the idea was really to inspire these beautiful women leaders to start working instead of only through what I call the unhealthy ego, to move over to essence, right? To magnify your essence. Because one of the key issues in burnout, many people don't know this, is what you call values tension.
Say a bit more about that.
I will. So if you are in an environment, let's just say there are other levels of stress, that's fine. But where you're in an environment where the values no longer align with yours, or you have to be somebody who you're not truly to fit in your mind, that is a lot of tension on your psyche, on your mind, on your being, right? And so women are having to, or believe they have to fit in. I'm sure you'd have seen this before.
Yes. So feeling like they need to be a certain way and a certain way of being in order to get on and be in place. We've got a fantastic question come through from Mark Terrell, actually. So just want to pop this over to you. Mark's question is burnout associated more with too much work or the wrong type of work? I think that's a great question. What's your view on that?
First of all, I love that question. I don't know, Mark, but I just love it so much. Okay, so let me say that it can be both. But Mark is onto something, because you could spend 5 minutes on the wrong type of work and burn out. I'm exaggerating, of course. But then you can then spend a lot more time on something that you really love and energizes you. But if you are not intelligent about your boundaries and filling your own cup and making sure everybody has a smartphone, right? I don't think anybody can expect their smartphone to go on for a whole week or two without being charged.
Yes.
Dead. It's not working any longer. You need to recharge.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So, as leaders, we need to be intelligent. We need to take responsibility for recharging our batteries. Everybody's cycle is different. I love bio-individuality. But even when you're doing what you love, what fires you up, what just gets you out of bed in the morning and you're like, go, go, go. If you do not take the time to recharge your batteries, you will burn out. And on the other hand, if you're in an environment where you are doing something which is just killing your soul, or with people who are just dampening your vibe, that's fast track to burnout.
Yes. I really get that. The same for me, doing the work that you're not born to do and that is not your gift, as it were, or doesn't play to your strengths, you will burn out quicker, I would say.
Definitely.
I think there's something about, and there's something here about, when you're doing purposeful work that really resonates with who you are and speaks to your soul. My challenge, and I think I hear other people's challenge, is knowing when to stop, because you're loving it so much that you don't stop when you need to stop. And it is being very, very conscious and intentional around how you look after yourself and making sure you keep yourself topped up. I love that battery analogy. It's a really great one. So
I mean, Mary, spot on. Absolutely. If you're not, as leaders, we need to be, because if
yes,
we're thinking, oh, I have to be there for my team, I have to be there for my clients, I have to be there for the organization, nobody can do anything without me, which is an ego thing, by the way, etc.,
yes,
etc. In the end, that the very thing we wanted to do, which was to be there for everybody, we would not be able to do. I'll use another analogy now. You cannot fill any cups from an empty teapot. Impossible.
yes. We
Nothing
could
will
do this. We could do this metaphor. Really, I've got another one I'll share in a minute. But that you cannot fill your cups from an empty teacup pot. That is brilliant. Yeah. So you've got to keep filling the pot. If you're coaching 10 people, you've got to make sure you keep topping yourself up to be able to be there for those 10 people that you're supporting and filling, whose cups you're filling. Brilliant. I love all this. The other analogy I had is that people are like tea bags. Put them in hot water and they only get stronger. So that's the other thing, is that we learn from our adversity, as you are a glowing example of that. You burnt out, but you absolutely transformed yourself and your life as a result of that. And now you are the essence magnifier. So that is remarkable. So tell me a bit more about your fame name, as it were. Where does that come from? You talked a lot about moving from ego to essence, which I love. I love that. I'm obsessed with ego. So move from ego to essence is marvelous. So, but tell us a bit more about being the essence magnifier. What does that mean?
That's a great question. I'll take it back to, I think, Mark's question, which is every single time we are not being ourselves. So we're working in the wrong job, we're in the wrong relationship, we are simply not at ease, showing up for who we truly are, we are shrinking. We're fitting in instead of just standing up and standing out, right? For me, what I really found in the corporate world is that people in general, especially women, we're having to fit into boxes to find approval, right? And also, I realized that this was a huge amount of waste, because diversity is not that, oh, I as a leader recruit somebody who looks exactly like me and I don't take anything of them which is unique to them and I don't have. I mean, who's interested, right? So I am all about human beings, especially women, because I work with them, magnifying their essence, not being limited to working what I call ego, which is past, limited experience, because experience is always limited, isn't it? It can be fear-based, things that are triggering you. It is really about control and territory and perfectionism and I have to be the best and all of that. And moving into a space of totality of possibilities. Anything is possible at this point in time. Am I open to it? Moving into a space of collaboration, because I do not believe that I have to dominate anyone to be strong. I am strong, right? Moving into a place of really saying that the person who I am inside of myself is worthy and deserves respect and love and admiration, and to be celebrated, not tolerated.
Yes. So something there.
Yeah, go
something
on.
there very strongly about self-love, self-respect, self-celebration. How do you, because some of the people I work with, when we talk about, celebrate success, I can't be too arrogant. I can't, there's a real little voice in their heads holding them back in terms of acknowledging what they're successful at. And they just move on to the next challenge. They don't have time to recoup and to take stock. How do you approach that in terms of encouraging people to really notice their successes?
Gosh, Mary, that is such an important point. The first thing I would say is I found that mostly with women, there's this thing about being a good girl.
Yeah.
Being a good girl, being not too arrogant.
Yes.
Certain things that a woman would say that are like, oh, your bossy boots. A man is a leader. He's taking charge.
Women. I mean, I'm smiling, but that's because I'm so familiar with it. Women get called bossy, whereas men get called leaders, for sure.
Absolutely. And so, how do I approach this? It's really, and I'm not saying it's easy, because this is conditioning over several years. I'm not working with 7-year-olds. I'm working with 35, 40, 50-year-olds. And so what I basically say is, it's about working with people for them to get to a point where understanding that these things that they have done, it's really being comfortable with it. Because if we're not able to celebrate our successes, that means that we're suffering at some level from some form of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think that's a very good point, actually. So that's a symptom. You've just highlighted to me what is a symptom that the imposter is going on. If you're not able to acknowledge what you've done well and what your successes are, you're allowing your imposter to dominate, is what I'm hearing. So there's something there about how can you contain your imposter? Because I think imposters can be useful. They're not all. It's not all negative. Nothing is all negative. It's always a balance. You know, imposters give us a sign that we are stretching ourselves and learning, that because they don't wake up until that part of us ourselves doesn't wake up until we're out there stretching ourselves and making a difference. But it's not allowing that part of ourselves to dominate, actually. And it's a great way of being able to identify your imposter must be around if you are not allowing yourself to notice what you're doing well and what you've succeeded at.
Can I say something as well? I truly believe that if you're not celebrating your successes, the small ones and the big ones, you will burn out quicker. Because if you're always in that drive mode, we're not celebrating, we're not taking stock. Because when you celebrate, you have all the hormones of celebrations that come up, which are good and healthy and invigorating. But if you're always in that, focus, what's wrong? We need to fix it. Okay, that's fine. But I need to go on and on. You will burn out quicker. So it's essential. It's essential to celebrate.
That is really good advice, and really good for people to notice if that's how they're being. The probable almost certain future is they're going to burn out. I'm interested, sort of the final question about the whole element of burnout really is, what do you reckon are the first signs that you may be moving towards burning out? This might be helpful for people, because we all get caught up in that sort of got to keep doing it, or we're loving what we're doing. We don't notice, that we might be not looking after ourselves. So what are the first signs, do you think, that we're going down that slippery slope?
That's a great question. Okay, so when you find out that you're working on something, or you're just at work, etc., and you're meant to be with your hubby or your children or your friends, and you just notice you keep missing out on all these social engagements, and these are important social engagements, right?
Yeah.
And you're not able to extract yourself, and I'm going to use that's a strong word, then there's probably an addiction going on there, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So
and is it addiction that causes us to burn out then? Is that what it is?
Well, it definitely is part of the equation, because otherwise you'd be able to stop, take a break, and come back. In my experience, I was completely in it. I was so disconnected from everything else and so connected with this.
Yes.
I mean, and in terms of signs, as you did ask me, Mary, at the time I was maybe on the far end of burnout. I mean, I couldn't remember things. There was total brain fog. I had unexplained aches and pains. I would go to doctors and they're like, "You're fine. There's nothing we can find that's physiologically wrong with you." I'm like, "Well, there's something wrong. I was stressed out of my mind. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Which makes you sharp and, very tricky, like,
So it affected your relationships and how you related to other people as well. So there's a variety. There's a variety of signs and symptoms there you've given us, but the one that comes through clearly is the inability to extract yourself, really struggling to find time for anything else but work, is what I'm hearing.
It becomes cynical as well. There's this idea, although you're so in it, there's also, is it worth it? That starts coming up. See, my excitement I started with turned to like disillusionment and disappointment.
Yes. This is really powerful stuff. Really, really helpful for us all to notice when we're going into that place. So, Bolutiwi, we are nearly at the end of our time. You wondered if it would go quickly. I said it would go quickly. It just whizzes by. And as your final piece of wisdom, you've shared so much wisdom with us today. Thank you so much. Your final words, you know, we're still in this coming out of lockdown. Are we going to come out of it fully? Are we not? Still lots of uncertainty around. What's your sort of final parting words to people that are watching now or watching afterwards?
I have 3 words, which is, especially if you're experiencing any of the symptoms that I just described, it is serious. It could lead to depression. It could lead to worse. I would simply say, stop, breathe, and be. This helped me so much.
Yeah. That's so easy to remember. So when you find yourself getting caught up in things, this could apply to all sorts of situations. But when you find yourself getting caught up in that, you can't extract yourself, or you're reacting to somebody.
Overwhelmed.
Stop, breathe,
and be.
Love it. Stop, breathe, and be. Fantastic. Bolutiwi, you have been the most amazing guest. There's been some fantastic wisdom that you've shared with us all today. Thank you so much. Been very generous to give me all this time with me today. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you? Extremely easy. So it's contactb.me. Oh, wow. That is incredibly easy. Right. Contactb.me. Lovely. You're a poet and you didn't know it. That's marvelous. Okay, so thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who's been watching today. And for those that are watching in catch up, do leave comments. We always respond to all the comments that you make. And to join us next week, we have Richard Foster Fletcher, who is he doesn't want to be called an expert. He's an advisor around responsible artificial intelligence. So that is an area of absolute exploration for me. I know very little about it. So I can't wait to have Richard join us and tell us about what he's taking on in terms of making that a really great play, a great contribution to our work and to inclusivity, actually. So there's elements of inclusivity that we're going to be talking about as well there. So do join us next week. Thank you once again, Bolutiwi. See you again soon, everybody.
Thank you for having me, Mary. Thank you very much.